just, how do you, how are you? How do you plan your business? And you know, yesterday in a call, I appreciated hearing Matt talking about time blocking for the first time and really beginning to try to, organize his day so that he can get the most out of it. And it's one of the things I'm going to talk about in a little bit of a different way, give you kind of a different sort of,
Here,
there you go. Look at that. Yeah.
this is my journal.
Give you kind of a different way of thinking about it. But, it's hard to believe, but, it's August 26th, 25th. Yeah, August 25th. And if you think about closings that take, 60 days, that puts us in the end of October. So that puts us into 1 month into the last quarter. What's happening right now is already determining what your fourth quarter is going to look like. And again, not putting him on the spot, but just because he said this as well, Matt has created a spreadsheet so he can kind of see, what he's got coming in the pipeline, what he's made so far, and what he's got coming in the pipeline, so that he can figure out what he's going to do next. And for me, that was critical when I first got in the business. I had to know where my pipeline was, because until I had a pipeline, I didn't feel like I was in control of how I wanted my business to look. And the example I would use for you is that, the first year I'm just scrambling. You guys have heard the story. I won't go into it, but my wife, 2 kids, left salary, benefits, made $300-400 in 6 months. And it was frightening. Even though I think, I thought I'd made the right decision. But then, the next 6 months, things started to come together. And again, the pipeline. So at the end of the first year, because I had been doing these things, thinking about each and every day, what am I doing to generate a new lead today? Whether it's a lead for 6 months from now, a lead for a year from now, a lead for tomorrow. Do I have a new one? That was just, it was just a focus that I had, until I had a lead, a new lead, then I couldn't finish for the day. I had to keep on, charging forward. And so at the end of the first year, now I got my business starting to go. I can see some things starting to happen. And when I started looking at, okay, what about next year? I was able to make a decision that was so important for me from a real estate sales standpoint, that if I never had to work with another buyer, I would be okay. Because when I was first in the business, there was not buyer brokerage. There was not exclusive right to represent. People were just willy-nilly. It's the Wild West, trying to hang on to people. Some of you have heard me talk about the calls I get on Monday morning saying somebody bought a new house, and I go, how could you have bought a new house? I wasn't with you this weekend. Or, hey, I ended up buying a FSBA. Well, why'd you do that? I told you not to go to those without me being around. Well, they told me if I didn't do it, I was going to lose the deal. And I lost 2 or 3 deals that were painful. And the reason they were painful is because I didn't have a pipeline. I was counting on those people to help pay my mortgage, to help feed my children, pay my bills, and those kinds of things. And so after the first year, I said, you know what? I got to figure out for me how best to do this business so that I'm in control of it versus it being in control of me. And so again, it's different for each person, but for me, I said, because I saw my pipeline, I saw what I was doing, I'm just going to do listings. I've got enough saleable listings now that if they all sell in a certain amount of time, then I'm going to have the money I need on a monthly basis to do what I need to do. And I'm just going to work my tail off to get more of them. And if I get opportunities for buyers, unless they were personal friends and I enjoyed being in the car with them and I knew they wouldn't stick a knife in my back, I didn't work with them. I referred them to other agents and just said, hey, can you work with these folks? And if it works out, pay me a referral fee. And so I just, after 1 year, which was, quite honestly, when I told my manager that, she looked at me like I was crazy. She said, what do you mean? I said, I just got to do it this way. If I don't do it this way, it's not going to work for me. I don't like having people take advantage of me. I don't like working hard and then not getting paid for it. I don't like, thinking I'm going to have an afternoon with my family and then somebody calls and says, I want to go see a house. I just, for me, I got to do it this way. And thankfully it worked. By the end of the third year, I was crushing it from a standpoint of being a listing agent and having business coming from geographic farming and mostly expired listings. I gave up on for sale by owners for me because it was not controllable as much as some of these other things. And so the whole point of just sharing that at the beginning of this is to just encourage you to really look at your business now, certainly for the last quarter of 2020, but more importantly, what 2021 is going to look like for you. And so I'm gonna go through this, and I'll send this out to you guys, this handout, so that you have it. But basically, success takes, I know this is going to be a surprise to you, but success takes I can versus an I can't attitude. And one of the big things about having an I can attitude is when you can see what you're doing is working, that you trusted yourself, you believed in yourself enough that you were going to go start time blocking. You were going to start, networking into different networks, whether it's Young Professional Network at CAR or the Young Professional Network at the new Young Professional Network at the Chamber of Commerce, whether it's, whatever it is, going out and helping Blue Ridge Area Food Bank or AHIP or, whatever the case may be, that you're going to put yourself in a position and you believe that that's going to happen. And if you haven't had a chance, I'd encourage you to Google the Brian Buffini Show.com, the Brian Buffini Show.com, and find the podcast on A Law of the Harvest. A Law of the Harvest is really, really important. And it's important for us, or at least it's important for me, because it resonates with who I am. And I'm hoping that the Law of the Harvest will resonate with who you are, because what it talks about is three things. It talks about giving, it talks about asking, and it talks about watching things grow. Okay? And here's the thing, the crazy thing about it is, and I have to remind myself this every day, and this is where the pipeline comes in, this is where your daily regimen comes in. The giving is 80% of it. Give, serve, serve, give. It's 80% of this Law of the Harvest, that you're just constantly sowing in to your business. And this can be true for your personal relationships too. You're just constantly giving, you're constantly serving, and with no expectation of return. That you're doing it because that's who you are and that's the kind of person you want to be. And at some point, and you'll know when it is, you're going to want to ask. And the ask is just, it can be as simple as, market's really crazy. We don't have enough listings. Do you know anybody who's thinking about selling? I would love the opportunity to talk to them about why this is a great time to sell. Hey, the market's crazy. Interest rates are in the 2s. I'm not sure you're aware of that, but do you know of anybody that might be thinking about buying versus renting? And the cool thing about those questions is you're not asking them personally. So you're not getting in their space, right? You're just asking if they know of anybody. And if they do, would you be willing to give them my name, or would you be willing to give me their information so I can call them and say, hey, Vincent Zorn told me that you're thinking about, selling. And, I'd love to talk to you about what that might look like. And so you're given. And the point being is when you've given like that, when you've served people, when you've showed people that you care, when you make the ask, they're with you. They've seen what you've done. They've seen that this goes back to my Young Life days, that you've walked the walk, right? Before you talk the talk, right? You've met them where they are, and you've given to them, and you've served them, and you've showed them that you're that kind of person. So that when you ask, it's much, much easier for them to say, absolutely, Matt, I would be happy to do that. Yes, indeedy, Russell. Yes, Yona, I would. There's nobody I'd rather do that with. And quite honestly, some of them may answer it, gosh, I'd love to, but my brother's a realtor. Or gosh, I'd love to, but I've bought and sold property with the same agent for however long. I mean, it just happened, a couple of weeks ago where that very thing happened, where I knew somebody was selling and I called them and reached out and said, hey, I heard you're selling. I'd love to refer you to one of our agents. And they said, Michael, I'd love to do that, but we've used the same blah, blah. My wife worked for her, whatever. Hey, I get that. That's fine. Totally fine. And I really appreciate you telling me. Now I know where I stand. I know I cannot expect for me to get business. No, you not say this to them, but in your head, you're going, okay, now I know that I'm not going to get business from these folks unless something drastically goes wrong. But that way you haven't beaten yourself up and you're thinking you're going to get business from them and you're investing in them and nothing happens. Now, that doesn't mean you don't stop giving to them, especially if they're a friend. Your relationship stays the same even if you don't get the business. That's where the give serve comes with nothing in return. But this whole aspect of then finding the opportunity, finding the place to ask, and saying, I need your help, blah blah blah. And then the final one is just watching things grow as you give and give and give, and then you ask. You'll begin to see the places where the seeds begin to sprout, where you're going to see things begin to grow. And going back to, some of you may not have watched it, but I did a crazy thing a few weeks ago on what you can learn by growing a garden. I've learned even more since then. I think I'm really good at cherry tomatoes. I'm not sure I'm good at anything else. But the point being is I'm really good at cherry tomatoes, right? I can see that for whatever reason, what I've done is working really, really well with cherry tomatoes. Green peppers, not so much. Banana peppers, I got one, right? Got a couple green peppers, squash, forget it. I get all the flowers, get nothing else. But the point being is when you give and you give and you give, and then you ask, you can then begin to see where the seeds start to sprout. And that's where you start investing your time. That's where, as you do your business plan for the end of the year and going into the next year, is where am I going to invest my time? Where am I going to invest my resources so that I get the most harvest out of those places? Does that make some sense in regards to? Yeah. And so, the as you think about the law of the harvest, and when you see the outline, you're going to see that it's got 8 gives, and it's got 1 ask, and it's got watch things grow. And that's because it's 80%, 10%, 10%, right? 80% give, 10% ask, 10% watch where it's growing. And then I'm going to go 80% in those places where it's growing, right? 80%, 8, whatever. The next thing, which, I've talked to you guys before about, is rising up. The first thing we have to do is decide to rise up. And for me, rising up means, okay, I want to take my business to the next level, or I want to just get my business started. And that's the next level, right? But some of you have got things going on and you want to take it to the next level. It's not going to happen if you sit and wait for it to drop in your lap. It's just not going to happen. I mean, you might get lucky, you might get lucky. You can hold your glove open at a baseball game, and at some point, maybe a baseball foul ball falls into your glove. I might get lucky by sitting, on the side of a pro golf tournament, and Phil Mickelson hits a ball that, comes right next to me, and I pretend like it hit me in the head so that he autographs it and gives me his golf glove. I can wait. And yeah, I might get lucky, but if I'm going to be intentional, if I'm going to really go after things, then I need to know that it's not going to happen if I just sit and wait, that I have to take the initiative. And so we need to make the decision to rise up. And again, we need to be resolved in where you want your business to go. We want to be intentional in how you go about making it happen. You want to be striving. Again, striving, it's a great word. It means I'm going the extra effort. I'm doing whatever I can to do it. I'm really going after it and reaching out to grasp the next rung of the ladder. If you think about it, getting up a ladder. I saw, the reason I was thinking about this the other day is I saw a video of my grandson, Xander. And Xander is just a water baby. He's 2 years old, and his father is an avid kite surfer, incredibly good at it. And his parents have a boat, and there's a video of Xander on the boat, and and I didn't know the first part of the story, but I'll tell you. But the video is him on the boat going to the edge, not just the edge of a thing, but he goes up. He goes up to the the bow, which is a little higher. And Russell, you'll appreciate this, but he literally just jumps off. Brendan doesn't catch him. I mean, he's got wings on. He's got the floaty and wings on, but he jumps off. He disappears. He comes popping back up. Brendan kind of gets him in the right direction. He paddles over to the ladder. Well, watching him try to get up that ladder, because he's just two, right? And I have a hard time getting up those boat ladders because the boat's moving and all that kind of stuff. But just watching him try to stretch up for that next rung, and to see the joy in his face when he gets to the top. And I don't know if the joy is because he's gotten to the top or because he runs right back up and jumps right back in again, right? What I didn't know was at the beginning of that video is the way they made that work is that Brendan was on the boat and Brendan literally picked him up and just threw him in the water. Just from the highest part of the boat, he just picked him up and just threw him in. And of course, and so he just jumped, he jumped in, he got him, and whatever. I'm getting some feedback. Are you getting feedback? Anyway, so but the point being is, striving, Xander was just striving to get to that next rung because he wanted to go and experience it again. And so resolved, intentional, striving. And then the next word I love is extraordinary. You guys have the opportunity, you have the potential to do extraordinary things with your business opportunities and with the relationships that you're building. And then the up in Rise Up is having an undeniable, you won't be stopped attitude. This is what I want to do. I want to be really good at it. I want to make a difference in people's lives by helping them buy and sell houses. And by God, I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to make it happen for me. I'm going to make it happen for the people. I'm going to make it happen for my wife, for my kids. I want to have that kind of life, right? And so nothing can stop me. Nothing can stop me. And then finally, the P, can be interchangeable, but having undeniable purpose/passion. What is your purpose? I mean, that's got to be at the very outset of this thing. Why are you doing it? What is your why, right? Why are you doing it? And is it important enough to rise up? Is it important enough to give it your all and get yourself to that place? So, what does it take for success? Again, having an I can versus an I can attitude. Second, rising up. And then the third thing is you need to take time to find your focus. And when I think about the word focus, and I know you guys know that this is just the way I am, I think about the first letter of the words, right? So focused to me stands for focusing on creating, developing a plan, creating unbelievable. Yes, you're going to believe that it's going to be big, right? You're going to really believe. Are you going to really, commit to it? So focusing on creating unbelievable success. What does it look like to you? And again, if you think about my 6Ds presentation, this is where you're dreaming it. If I'm really successful, what does it look like to me? And then not every so often, but every day. And every day, 5.5 days a week, 5.5 days a week, there should be things that you're doing every day to be resolved, intentional, and striving for extraordinary things. And that's where the day comes in, every day. That's where the time blocking and the prospecting activities have to be set in stone. It has to be part of your everyday work schedule. There has to be an hour and a half where I'm doing something where I'm going to generate new business. And it doesn't mean having to be on the phone. It doesn't have to mean emailing. It might be that you're walking around your neighborhood, putting food drive flyers around. It might be going to a young professional network meeting that's not just realtors, it's people from all sorts of businesses, and building new relationships and establishing rapport with them and gaining credibility with them and showing them you care. But there's got to be an hour and a half that you look at and say, okay, this is the time of day today that I'm going to increase my sphere. You know, I've shared with you recently about the fact that if you want to increase your net worth, you need to expand your network, right? The more people that you have in your network, that you have built relationships with, that you have established those relationships, and that you're consistently being in their lives, the more opportunities things are going to come your way. And again, in a position of giving to them. As they come into your group, your effort is to go out and give. Your effort is to go out and serve them. What can I do for you? How are you doing? What kind of things can we do together? And so focus on creating unbelievable success every day. And then the next one is you make yourself swell up with pride. Make yourself swell up with pride. Be in a place where you're really happy and pleased with not only what's happening for you from a production standpoint, from a sales standpoint, but be prideful in the way you're doing it. Prideful in the way you're doing it. And again, first letters of the word, right? Or the letters of the word. Pride is personally, responsible, and then for your, and then individual, again, daily, well, at least 5.5 days a week, effort. And going back to what I've talked about before, this means failing forward. This means failing forward, finding ways today to make your business better tomorrow. Finding ways today to make your business tomorrow. And this is a lesson that I learned, you know, recovering from Guillain-Barré syndrome. I was having a conversation with somebody just yesterday who had not heard what had happened to me. He saw me and he said, "Hey, Mike," he's a guy that I've known since he was in high school at Charlottesville High School back in the 70s. He said, "Mike, how you doing?" I'm such and such. I said, I didn't remember him, but he recognized me and came up and he said, "I heard you've been really sick. How are you doing?" And so I just kind of relayed a little bit of the story with him. But what it brought back in my mind is this whole aspect of when I couldn't move at all, my focus was not on when I could move or when I would get out of the hospital or when I would get out of rehab, because at that point I didn't know what was going to. My focus was, what can I do today that's going to make me better tomorrow? And then as I began to move, you know, little fingers at first, and ultimately my arms went above my head, and it was just about what's next. And you guys, a lot of you have heard me talk about that. I just had this attitude of what's next. The rehab people at Almar Rehab, that became kind of a joke amongst those folks. I'd get done with something and a group of them would go, "Tony, what's next?" Because that's what I was always saying. All right, we did that. Now what's next? And I have a friend, a young friend, who played football at Campbell University, who had shoulder surgery and unfortunately somehow came down with Guillain-Barré right after that. And he he's had a really tough time. He's fought back. He was back home and he had a relapse and he had to start all over again. And now he's back home again. And this morning, his mom sent me a picture of him in a walker, you know, being able to walk again. And so I went back through my photos and I found a picture of me with my walker putting. Almar Rehab had a little putting green. And when I could get stand up enough with the walker, I said, "You guys, that's what's next. We got me on the walker. Now I want you to help me. I want to putt. And so I sent her a picture today of me with on the walker putting, just because I wanted her to see, you know, he's gonna make it. But this whole aspect of failing forward, did I fall down? Yeah, lots of times, right? But it was all about, what can I do today? And if they said you need to go take a nap, I was all for it. The horse went back to the barn to take the nap. If that was what was next, then that was what was next. And that's still part of my regimen today. I mean, you know, at 1 o'clock, most of you know, don't call me at 1 o'clock because I'm putting my head down for, you know, 20 or 30 minutes because my stamina is still not where it needs to be. But the point being is the effort means failing forward. What am I going to do today to make myself better tomorrow? I mean, you guys being on this call today, I hope by things that you'll learn from this. You will have done something today that will make you better tomorrow because you will implement some of the things I'm talking about. Before I go on, questions or thoughts so far?
One thing that really stuck out to me, it's been months ago on a Zoom call. I believe either you referenced it or somebody referenced it, is you almost answer the calls when a client's calling. You just say, how can I help you? What can I do to make the situation better? If you just start the call out with that, I have found that gets a lot of traction. They're like, oh, wow. They don't even have to ask you. If you're already volunteering yourself and, like you're saying, serving, I've really just taken that to heart, and with just in every aspect of life, not just real estate. If you just say that to anybody, like, what can I do next to help you? It just starts like a great attitude just from the beginning. I've really had some traction with me. That's helped. So.
Yeah, that's that New Amsterdam thing that I picked up, that the chief of the hospital, and every time somebody come up to him with a problem, he'd just say, how can I help?
That was it.
Yeah. It is. It's incredible. And you can use that the other way too. You can call up, say you got an issue, and Russell's had some issues with closings, but thankfully they've closed, and just closed another one yesterday. But you can have issues with closings, and when you call those people, instead of that's my Brian Buffini interpretation, Yona. Instead of that, it's, hey, I'm just calling. How can I help you with this? We just had a situation, one of our agents who, the thing was supposed to go to record a week ago Friday, and it finally went to record this past Friday. And I got involved in it because we just weren't getting anywhere. It was an out-of-town closing company. It was an out-of-town lender. I mean, it's total craziness. But I got an email and I said, hey, I'm the broker of the company, and how can I help? What can I do to get people sort of from screaming at each other, and let's get this thing resolved. And another person reached out and said, hey, I've got this. I wasn't aware this was going on. Such and such has been out of the office for a couple of days. Well, that would have been nice to know, right? We're sending emails to the guy that we think's in charge, and he's out of town, and he didn't tell anybody he was going to be out of town. Now, I'm sure he thought, okay, it was done on Friday. We're all good. Well, on Monday, we weren't all good, right? Anyway, the good news is it closed. But the point being is, as Russell's saying, just how can I help? How can I serve you? How can I want to be a part of this. Here's the deal. I want to be part of the solution rather than becoming more of the problem, right? If you can have that kind of attitude, it changes everything. I've shared this story. It's a little bit side note, but it still makes the point. I've shared the story about two couples going to JMU for Parents Weekend, and they're driving up 81, and she's in the left lane. And all of a sudden, Route 11's there, the exit that takes you into JMU, the main exit. They could have gone one more exit and circled back, but her husband, who's in the front seat, says, this is the exit. I'm not going to mention names because somebody may know them. And she literally, without even looking, just went from the left lane all the way to the exit. She just over to the exit. And her husband's freaking out. The couple in the back are freaking out. They get to the stop sign at the top of the hill. And if you know that place, it's, you're right there, and you got to take a left and go across the bridge to JMU. And the husband's just going crazy, just freaking out in front of this other couple and whatever. And the wife looked at him and said, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. And he, I know, that was a dumb thing for me to do. I really apologize. I made a mistake. Well, after about the second or third, I'm sorry, I made a mistake, the guy had nothing left. Because she didn't give him any gas for the fire. So he just finally, and it's become this, it's become this joke since, and I use it all the time about the fact is all I have to do is say, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. It's amazing. If you keep that tone and that attitude, how things just have to settle down because you're not pouring gas on the fire. Other thoughts?
Yeah, I have something similar to what Russell says, sort of in the beginning, which I really like. I learned this a lot in finance when, you're having tough conversations when we were having, building financial plans or something like that. And sometimes you get into heated topics, sometimes it could be about anything, right? Where you recognize you can be in a situation that is contentious, right? And you finish your comments and you know, I've tried to ingrain this in my language as well, is like when something's happening, you end with a question that says, has this been helpful? And just, and it's similar in the sense that if you say it right and truly mean it, it is this sort of, you can say a lot of wrong things in that comment and they can be anxious and ready to fight. And if you say something like, has this been helpful? That gives them the opportunity to say no. Or conversely, right, it's actually an opportunity. It's a huge element to building trust too, because what you're looking for is some actual body language or something that says, you're giving me good feedback, keep going. And that's a great question to end with oftentimes, especially in like I'd imagine meetings where you're trying to, figure out, whether you've met what they're looking for. And if you haven't, right, you put yourself in a vulnerable state that they feel like they can push more if they're holding on to something. In the same way of acting like you're trying to push the language of servanthood, pushing the language of humility and recognizing, all right, I just said my piece, but it's way more important that you understand it and that you believe in me and so in order to do that, you have to be vulnerable and be willing to ask that question. And more often than not, you get it has been helpful. Great. I'm so glad to hear that. And then you can follow up with the ask, or whatever, whether it's buying a product or I want to sell your home or whatever. But that's a really good way to make sure that the conversation is going in the right direction. Give them the opportunity to follow up. And at best, right, just establish ending on a good note where they feel like they're in control. Because that's what you want for them. As much as we want to be in control of the situation and dictate, you want to give them the ability to control how they're feeling and be able to be comfortable to say it.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
That's
and I think the other thing. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. It also I've used. I mean, that works in almost any situation, right? It takes the away from presentation to collaboration, right?
Yeah.
So now you're inviting conversation rather than, even though you're giving your opinion, and it may be in I'm getting
an echo.
crazy feedback. Sorry. How's that?
The green box is going to Russell when it's Russell. I don't know if that means anything.
Oh, there it is. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say. It changes that from I'm telling you to let's talk about it, right? Without actually saying that. So that is a great way to invite that collaboration, that conversation. And it does put in a sales situation. I'm assuming you're talking about that, like a sales call, right? Puts them in a position to decide, right, if they want to be on board or not without you telling them. So that was a great point.
It's a great metric too, that at least for me, I recognized over time as I asked that question, I would get, like for me, for example, I would get constant reiteration questions about one particular part in the process. And so if I said, has this been helpful? And they say, well, I really have more questions on this, like you're saying the fees are like this or whatever. And so for you, for me, it would be a constant it'd be a helpful thing if I'm noticing they're asking the same question over and over again. That's probably because I'm not doing a good job explaining it very well. And so it's a great way to also understand whether or not what you're saying is sinking in, and even just great way for you to get tune the feedback process and help your sales cycle be more efficient and well communicated.
I think the other thing that's really important in what you guys are saying here is not only that, how you can help, or we talk about WOPEN questions all the time, always answering a question with a question. WOPEN, why, where, when, what, how, spelled with a W. When you do that, it can't be a yes or no answer, right? But the other side of this, the flip side of this thing is you don't have to get your way. You have to get your client's way. And this goes back to serving, right? You get entangled, and Yona and I have talked about this, and anybody that's had a fair amount of experience in the business, Bevan, Jay, you get entangled with an agent who wants it their way. Their ego has to win. They have to show you that they know more than you do. It is so easy to allow ourselves to get down the mud and do the same thing. And that's absolutely not what we need to do. We need to back away. And even if I have to submit, and using the word that Clark used a minute ago, humility, if I have to humility, just go, hey, saying this to my client, hey, this person wants it this way, so let's just let him do it. Because we want you to get this house. I mean, I'll give you a practical application of this. Just yesterday, one of the agents wrote a contract on a house, got it ratified. Good news. With an agent who thinks they know more than some of us do. And they got wrapped around the axle with homeowners association documents and where and how they had to be delivered. And our agent, surprisingly, was right in what they thought. And so she wanted the documents delivered to her, not to her client, which is fine if that's what they agreed to. And the other agent kept on pressing that he wanted the purchaser's home address. Well, she didn't have to give him the home address because the document said that they're to be delivered to her. So I just said, get out of the way and say, if you need an address, use my office address. Here's my email address. Here's my office address. If that's what you need to do to check your little box that you need a mailing address as well as an email, don't fight over the fact that we're not going to give you the home address. Just say, here's my office address and here's my email address. And the problem went away. And the whole point was that it went away because the contract is clear that if you put that in there, it's being received by the agent. Well, then the homeowner's documents needs the agent's email address and mailing address. But it could have been so easy to just keep on fighting. That's not ultimately the best thing. And so just say to your client, I want you to get this house, or say to your client, I want you to sell this house, and therefore we're gonna do it. We're not gonna do anything unethical or immoral, but we're gonna go, if we can do it their way and stay within the guidelines of the contract, you don't have to win that one. That's one that you don't need to win. As my good friend used to say, who was older than Dottie and me, when we first started having kids, I'd say to her, Marilyn, how do you handle this, or how do you handle this? She'd say, you're going to lose some battles if you want to win the war. There's certain things that you're going to need to lose. So I lost the battle that Becca and Katie got their ears pierced at, I don't know, 10 or 11. I thought that was way too early, right? And then they wanted to get a second piercing, right? Now I'm really not a happy guy. And I don't know if it was Dottie or whoever, but somebody gave us an idea. Let them get their their belly button pierced. And the reason for that is because, one, it's very rarely shows. And two, when they get tired of it, you're never going to know it was there. And so we let them and they thought that was so cool. Oh, Dad's letting us get our belly button pierced, right? That wasn't my idea. That was somebody a lot smarter than me in helping me lose a battle and win the war. So anyway, good stuff. All right, quickly, just
I was
a
gonna
few other
say,
things.
Can I add?
Go
Can I
ahead.
add something?
Yeah, please.
I was just gonna say, I think Clark and I are some of the newer folks here, but I've already experienced, like, just in my first few months, that happens already working with other agents, but like it's always two-sided. So it's the same like law of the harvest lesson where you want to treat agents with respect. I mean, there was one agent who, like, I talked to her about a showing, and the next day she messaged me about a showing on one of my listings, and it goes back and forth like that. So I just find, I don't know, sometimes it sounds cool to want to be the negotiation, hot rod and come in and Wolf of Wall Street it and absolutely take something over, but it's not worth it at all. It's really not. But
Yeah.
my comment from earlier that I was gonna say is, so what I've done for the last 2 weeks is tracked all the prospecting I've done. So people have actually talked to, people I've sat and met with, and people I've like either called or been messaging. And it's very, very eye-opening because it'll show you exactly what you are or are not doing. Like it'll show you exactly how much time you are or not spending doing this stuff. And so I actually got this advice from someone else, but I bought a chess timer that I'm going to put on my desk. And so if you're spending time doing something, you obviously start the time, but then if you get distracted, you have to turn it on the other side to stop it. And so, you know, if you're doing a task or you're prospecting, whatever you want to work on, you can start the time. But then if you get an inbound phone call or you have to do something admin related immediately, you have to stop it. So it prevents yourself from saying, oh, I spent an hour doing this, when in reality you did it for 20 minutes and then got distracted. But it makes a difference.
I love that.
I'm trying to be much more like honest, because then you at least know. Like if you honestly only spent 20 minutes doing something, you at least know what the room for improvement is, and you don't think you spent 2 hours and you're wondering why you're not getting results. So just a more honest.
Well, the failing forward aspect of that, Matt, is, you know, if you spent 20 minutes a day, 5 days a week, 20 times 20 is it's 400 minutes. So it's almost 6 hours, 7 hours.
20
right?
minutes, 20
that you
minutes?
you didn't do the month before. If you just did
Oh,
20
for all
minutes
month.
of,
For all month.
yeah.
Yeah.
You did prospecting for that amount of time, 5 days a week, and you hadn't done it before. That's almost 7 hours worth of, looking for new business that you didn't do the time before. Same thing with written notes. If you write one a week, even that's 4 more or 5 more than you did last month.
Better than 15 minutes a day.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right. So quick, some how-tos for you. None of this is going to, I don't think, be a real surprise to you, but setting reasonable goals. We just talked about that. I promise I forgot I was going to go there, but setting reasonable goals, ones that are stretched but attainable. Thinking back about that, the rung of the ladder. You know, if you are writing one note a day, and you can look, as we just talked about, we can look at our track record and see that we are. Well, maybe I do, instead of 5 notes a week, I make a commitment, I'm going to do 8. So I'm going to do 1 a day, but 3 days a week, I'm going to do 2 or 3 or whatever makes 8. But anyway, reasonable, but attainable. You're stretching yourself, but you can get there. Don't make those ridiculous goals that you're not going to meet, because you're just going to get disappointed and discouraged and not do it. Second, and again, this is where the time blocking and the time management comes in, is creating a rhythm so that your routine becomes how you live. Creating a rhythm so that your routine becomes how you live. And I knew this. I've taught it for 30 years. I did not know the power of it until the last year and a half. I am in a routine now in my life that I've never been in before, because I had to, right? I'm coming out of it. I'm in much better shape, recovery, blah, blah, blah. But I love the routine. I shared with you guys a couple of weeks ago, you literally could almost set your watches. You could look at your watch at any time of the day and know what Michael Guthrie's doing. I could literally sit down and I could write down what my day looks like. And for the most part, it's the same every day. And some people might say that's boring, right? It's not boring, because it changes in the blocks of the different things I'm doing. I mean, one of my favorite stories, and Clark, and Matt, him too, Mark Sanford. Mark is one of the most boring guys you're ever going to meet, because he is so set in his routine. I mean, so set in his routine. And I give him a hard time about it all the time, to the point that he eats the same thing every day. He'd come to Covenant when he was at Covenant, and he'd have a turkey sandwich and some carrots and something. And my friend Steve McNerney was the women's basketball coach back in the day. And one day he went into Mark's office and got his turkey sandwich out and put a thin piece of cardboard in the sandwich instead of the turkey, really thin, and put the sandwich back together. And Mark ate the sandwich. And he didn't even realize that it was that anything had changed, because it's just the same thing every day. When I see him in Costco now, he's got the same bag of fruit for his smoothies that he does. But when you look at him, and he's got to be 60 something, I'm guessing. He doesn't look 60 something. I mean, he is a guy that is in incredible shape. But anyway, the point being is, what's happened is my life has a rhythm that becomes how I live. And you guys have heard me talk about this before. This, real estate's not a job, it's a lifestyle. I've always said that. Everything you do can be either brought back to real estate or come out of real estate. You want to coach a group of kids, Matt and Clark, I'd love to see you guys coach a youth basketball team together. That'd be awesome. But you coach the kids, and if you do it well and do it right, then those parents, you build rapport with those parents, and you gain respect from those parents, and you gain credibility, and then all of a sudden they're asking you about real estate. You go out and do a food drive and blah, blah, blah. You get the point. That it's just how you live, right? It's not a job, it's a lifestyle. And the negative side of that is you got to be careful about doing things the right way. If you got, realtor license plates, you don't want to cut somebody off on 29, right? Or, take somebody's parking space in front of Barnes and Noble when they were about to turn into that parking space, because that's going to reflect on you, and it's going to reflect on your business. Everything you do in your day can either ripple out or ripple into your business. And if you have that mindset, that servant-hearted, again, that giving mindset of I just constantly going to give. I'm going to constantly give people information, regardless of what happens. I'm going to do this. Then it will ripple back into to your business. And then the next thing is, be someone who has never met a stranger. Most of you are really good at that. Some of you probably need to work on it a little bit. You've never met a stranger. Develop a mindset where you see your comings and goings as opportunities for your business. Barb Kelly, you could work on this. Dick Kelly is somebody who's never met a stranger. He'll tell me about people he's met in the neighborhood or thinking about doing this or that. And then when I ask you about it, I say, oh, I didn't know that. Working on, never meeting a stranger, developing a mindset where you see the comings and goings as opportunities for your business. You just never know. As you engage with others, or meeting them for the first time, Clark, here it is. Ask them, how can I help you? How can I serve you? What's going on in your life that I can be a part of? This whole aspect of Jim Ryan spoke yesterday or the day before at the whatever they call the beginning convocation, and he talked about the fact that he wants UVA students to be bridge builders. And his whole point was, we're social distancing, but we still need to connect. We need to be bridge builders. One of the greatest compliments anybody's ever given me, George Morris, who some of you know, he said, Michael, when I look at you, I see a bridge builder. I see people that get up to a river and they don't know how to get across it. And then they meet you, and the next thing they know, they're across it doing whatever it is they were going to do, because you knew how to build the bridge to get them from one place to the other, whether it was because of one person to another, or, oh, we'll try this or do that. One of the greatest compliments anybody's ever given me was that they saw me as a bridge builder. So be a bridge builder. Having what needs to be done written down. Matt showed his notebook a few minutes ago. Some of you may put it in your iPad or your phone or your computer. Honestly, I think you should write it down. I think you should have a notebook. I got a notebook. I write things down to remind me. I think when you write it, it goes into your head better than if you type it. I don't have any scientific data on that. But I know when I write stuff down in my journal in the mornings, or if I write stuff down for a thought about a class or whatever, I have a much better chance of remembering it if I've written it down versus if I've just typed it, or worse, copy and pasted it, right? How many things have you read and online and you copy and you paste it? I'm going to go back and think about that later, right? That copy and paste, that does nothing in your brain. But when you write each word down, it changes it. So everything you decide to implement should involve scheduled times where you connect with those you know or intentionally try to meet. Where you intentionally try to meet someone new. Do them by the clock. Matt, you just talked about that. I know Yona had to leave, but she So do them by the clock. That reminds you I have to reach out to someone in some way or someone. Emergencies will arise, but that is why things need to be written down. Something I'm doing, this is something I'm doing new that I hadn't done before, is I now have in my phone a reminder at 6 o'clock in the morning, 9 o'clock, 6, 9, 12, 3, 6, 9. I have a reminder to stop and just, kind of get my perspective on the day. So 15 minutes before 6 o'clock in the morning, I get a reminder, okay, stop, be still, figure things out, think about your day. How are you going to use it? What are you going to do? Blah, blah. 9 o'clock in the morning, 12 o'clock noon. And it just reminds me. Now I'm going to tell you, I'm learning a lot from that because I thought, oh, that'll be easy, right? I'm 6 o'clock. I'm up at 5:15. I'm watching Rise and Grind at Facebook at 5:30. At 6 o'clock, who else is going to distract me? 6 o'clock's fine. 9 o'clock, I've got my day started, but now it's time. I can't tell you how many times that 15-minute reminder comes, and I don't stop and do it. I'm much better than I was. I just started this, a few weeks ago. I'm much better than I was, but it's been really helpful to just kind of keep a perspective on the day and look at what the last 3 hours have looked like and how I did things well and how I didn't do things well, or if I didn't get something done and I need to get it done. But it can also be used for your reminder that, have I got an appointment today? When I first was in the business, that was the Post-it note over my phone. He said, have you gotten an appointment today? And if I hadn't, then my day wasn't over. And then the other Post-it note I had was, and that was big time, folks. Those were the first Post-it notes ever. I just want you to know that I was implementing that procedure for the first time because there was no such thing as a Post-it note before that. But anyway, the second one, and both of them were in my car as well. Second one was, have you made a positive difference in the world today? Those are the two things that I absolutely wanted to do each and every day. I wanted to get a new appointment, and I wanted to make a positive difference in the world. So anyway, literally put 15 to 20-minute appointments in your phone. It reminds you, I have to reach out to somebody today. I have to reach out in some way to somebody. Certainly emergencies will arise, but that's why things need to be written down. And I'm getting to the end here. First time each day to be one who rests, literally, but with this thought process. Again, rests, using those letters, reflecting, what did I do well or not so well, and how will I improve on it tomorrow? Examine, take time regularly to listen and read how other folks are building their business. Take time regularly to listen and read how other folks are building their business. 3, strategize for tomorrow and beyond. 4, take time out to do what you enjoy and be with those you love. And then finally, and very importantly, sleep. Yes, make your daily routine. Allows you to, making a daily routine, getting in the routine on a daily basis allows you to get enough sleep because you've got the routine in. You're going to go to bed at a certain time. You're going to get up at a certain time. Your body, gets used to it, and on you go. So, lastly, I know this is a lot. As I always say, I kind of threw up all over you. But focusing on doing things today that will make you better tomorrow will cause you to believe, so that the T and I can't can be crossed out, leaving the fact that yes, each and every one of you all can. You can make it happen. You can create a business that is one that you're prideful of, that is supplying you with what you need for your family, but most importantly, that fulfills you. It gives you a fulfillment because you're making a positive difference in the world. You're helping people with one of the biggest decisions that they're going to make in their lifetimes, and hopefully they make it 3 or 4 times with you as repeat business. So, any thoughts? Other additional thoughts?
I have a one small thing. I was talking about, I was just talking about this with Matt. We've, as a coach, and I'll just give a basketball analogy because I'm, that's pretty much how I relate pretty much all of my my life's lessons. But when in summer times, I used to say, hey, shoot 1,000 shots a day, right? Shoot 1,000 shots a day. If you do this, you're gonna get better, right? Over time, I found, at least in my life and I would say the kids' ways in terms of they respond to that too. It's instead of focusing on the 1,000 shots, it's focusing on the 500 makes or 250 makes or whatever it is, right? So I don't care if it takes 30 minutes for you to make 250 shots or 2 hours, right? But focus on 250 makes. And in the same way, right? And granted, this is just a mindset. You don't have to agree with me. Like I just found it to be more effective for me is that time always runs out and it always feels negative, like you're pushing against time. Whereas if you just say a goal for yourself, I'm going to reach out to 5 people, right? And that might take 5 minutes. That might take 30 minutes. But at the end of the day, I'm going to say, I got 5 people today. And that to me is like a positive framework that says I reached that many people. You know, and for instance, like for me, and this is probably my personality where I can get distracted is that like, you know, if I say an hour, I'm always gauging, right, how much did I do in that hour? And sometimes it just defeats, it creates this anxious element in me of like, how much can I rush through to get through an hour? And then I just find myself constantly comparing versus what I've done or what other people can do in an hour. And my wife is like a rock star productivity. So I'm always measuring myself against her and always losing. So it's just this element of, but reframing the narrative to just create a structure that where the goals are entirely result and goal oriented, as opposed to how much can I get done in this time frame. So just a thought process. The second thing, and this is going to show my millennial roots, I totally disagree with the whole writing stuff down, but if you're going to type it, you better print it out and you better have a visual that you constantly look at. In the same way that Michael Guthrie's sign, right? He's probably not going to write that because I don't think his handwriting is as good. Having visuals that can be printed out and typed or whatever is the key concept behind that. Is if you're gonna type, and I'm a left-hander, so I'm used to the smearing and horrible handwriting, all that other stuff, right? I'm going to type it, but you better believe I'm going to print it out and I'm going to have some sort of visual that constantly reminds me, because I think that's one of the greatest benefits of writing things down is having the ability to go back to it and having a tangible book that you can go back to instead of a file that you have to open on a computer. So anyway, whatever you do, typing or, you know, printing, you're always going to find me with a printout because my handwriting is horrible. But I just want to say, whatever you do, have a visual that constantly reinforces the type of habits and the type of structure you're creating. The only, you know, I can say this from multiple years of failure and trying to create a structure that works for myself. So anyway, just want to offer
That's
that.
great. That's really great. Well, guys, thank you so much. I'll send you the handout so that you have it, and you know, give me your feedback and let me know how it works for you. All right.
Thanks, Michael.
Great. Thank you, Michael.
Right.
Thanks,
Have a
Rob.
great day, guys.
You too.
Appreciate
Thank
y'all.
You too.
Bye.